species, the complexities of communities, function within and between species, so on and so forth. That's just background. Overall, what can we say about Antarctic diversity? We can say that it's low. Those numbers I put up very quickly show that even compared to the most extreme parts of the Arctic, Antarctic diversity is very low. Many groups at least one land record. Brown boxes are boxes where we don't have a record at all, and that's generally because we haven't been there. It's not that we have been and know there is nothing there, it's that we haven't been. And there are virtually equal numbers. There are nearly 50% in each of those categories. So our coverage is not very good when it comes down to it. That is the best known group. If we look at the bottom map, bottom right, this is slightly different, but it's a map of information of studies that have carried out diversity studies using molecular techniques of soil microbes, or microbes generally, sorry. And you can see we actually have got very, very, very bad coverage of studies looking at microbial diversity, despite the fact microbes are probably the dominant organisms of the Antarctic. So, big gaps. How much can we say? Can we say how isolated this biology is? Can we get any clues to say how long it's been present on the Antarctic for, or how long it's been isolated for? Well, to give you an answer before I give a couple of slides on detail, the simple answer is that life has persisted on Antarctica for a very long time. And when I say that, I mean millions to tens or possibly hundreds of millions of years. And that is a change of view. That's based on evidence over the last 10 years. The way to look at the map in this slide is that basically it shows that all of the major terrestrial groups, so the little illustrations show flies and mites and rotifers and diatoms, rotifers and diatoms, lichens, springtails, freshwater copepods, and so on. All of the groups that are dominant in Antarctic terrestrial and freshwater environments are now known or inferred to have very long histories on the continent. It's a complete change of view over the last 10 years. The other thing about this map is it points to all of the parts of Antarctica where there is significant ice-free ground. So the story is that everything has been there for a long time, and this applies to all the different parts of Antarctica. So it's not just a sort of story that comes from one bit of Antarctica and doesn't affect the rest of Antarctica. We could have realized this a lot earlier. We don't need fancy molecular techniques or anything else to look at something called endemism. Endemism simply means species that occur within a given area. The word endemism doesn't have a scale to it. You can be endemic to a small island, a big island, you could be endemic to an entire region of the continent, or you could be endemic to Antarctica, or for that matter, you could be endemic to South America or something of that sort. But endemism is a well-recognized term, and as long as you qualify it with the scale you're talking about, it's a very clear term. Endemism is a well-known feature of many terrestrial species in the Antarctica. It's just until recently this observation hasn't been linked across different groups. So, for instance, at least a third of the terrestrial invertebrates and at least half of the lichen species known from Antarctica are currently thought to be endemic. If you're a specialist in nematodes, some people would say that every single nematode occurring in the Antarctic is endemic to the Antarctic. There don't appear to be non-Antarctic nematodes. It's worse than that, in that you can draw a line across the base of the Antarctic Peninsula, and there is no overlap at species level between any of the nematodes, any of the mites, or any of the springtails. Endemism is a big feature of Antarctic terrestrial biology, and those levels of endemism take time to evolve. There is no way that those levels of endemism could have evolved in the 10 to 20,000 years since the retreat from last glacial maximum. I should say here that the mosses, the thing I call the dominant photosynthetic vegetation, do appear to be an exception to this rule. It appears that only 5 or 10% of them are endemic, rather lower levels, and it has been thought they might represent more recent colonists. I'll come back to that. Now, plainly, molecular biology, and I'm not a molecular biologist, I'm an ecologist. Molecular biology gives you clues as to how long ago different groups radiated or how long they've been in a particular area. I'm going to give a couple of examples of what are called molecular clock studies. These are studies that attempt to date separation events or colonization events based on the fact that DNA mutates gradually over time, and the number of differences between two species in a given sequence can give you a clue for how long those two species have been separate to each other. The example on this slide is for a midge. There we are, a midge called Belgica on the Antarctic Peninsula. I've done that again. Belgica on the Antarctic Peninsula, compared with another one called Eretmoptera on South Georgia. They are both endemic to those specific regions. And molecular clock studies suggest they separated about 49 million years ago. That's not a very precise figure. There are error bars in this, but plainly several tens of millions of years ago, not thousands. That date is possibly coincident with the geological separation of Antarctic Peninsula, the southern end of South America, and actually South Georgia as well. That's a small little continental platelet that has been running away eastwards from the tip of the Antarctic Peninsula since more or less the time that South America and Antarctica split up. So that's one molecular study. There are very analogous studies of springtails and mites now. There's a sort of rapidly increasing number of studies of this sort in the literature. Studies have been applied to microbes as well. This is a rather complicated looking tree of a diatom called Pinularia borealis. That is a global diatom. It's a truly cosmopolitan species, but it does have a lineage in it, indicated by the red arrow, that is specifically Antarctic. And if you go a little bit further and you try to date that, it's the suggestion from molecular studies, this species